Oh. You're also not remembering.
Search and rescue.
Just like me.
Okay, so we're gonna do our lab. Let's see why it's not. Okay, so I was debating what to really give you for this lab because, you know, I didn't want you to do the backup and recovery one. I think that those things been done before in other classes. So I thought maybe they need to learn a little bit more fuzzing because I think we only went through a couple of the fuzzing tool before. For this class, I think in the other class I might have talked a little bit more about for fuzzing, but really important for this industry is for you to flourish learning Burp Suite. I know that using it in Linux is in Kali, I want to say, is not ideal because, you know, the Java packages are not compatible with their latest Java package, but you can download it on Windows and try to learn using it. Burp Suite is really nice. It is a good way for you to create proxy, set up interception, and do a lot of different type of assessment for pen testing purposes. But today we're going to spend a little bit more time, you know, talking about fuzz or fuzzing. So I focused this particular exercise on that. It's not too long. So you are going to need Kali Linux. We are going to download Kali, which I did, right? It comes down in my downloads folder if you're using Chrome. And then I would right click the zip file, show more options, 7-zip, and extract. And you would get an unzip folder like this. Then I would open up my VirtualBox. You don't want to double click the file because you want to give it a little bit more RAM and processor. So that way it is a little bit more responsive when you're running the scan. So we're going to click add. Go to the extracted folder, double click, and then get inside its subfolder and find a VBox file. Once you got it added to the playlist, go to settings, and we're going to change up our system configuration. We're going to give this 8,000 megabyte. So roughly about that much is okay. And then the processor, we're going to give it 4. Oops. And we're going to click OK. So once you have set up your processor and your RAM, you can start. So that's part A. Then we're going to log in and we're going to do an update and upgrade. This might take a little bit of time, but because, you know, you can, I guess, push update only, but upgrade is going to install additional libraries that you might need. So I will have to pause the video when we get to this point. So we are gonna activate, or we're gonna install Damn Vulnerable Web App. The reason why I wanted to use this feature or this tool is that I want you to have a web application and a server with a database. So that way we can look at different areas of fuzz. What can you do with fuzz and is it effective, right? So the tool that we're gonna be using today is we're gonna use FFUF, which is short for Fuzz Faster Useful, right? It is somewhat user-friendly, but its capability can be, you know, pretty wide. You can find a lot of different things using it. Now, keep in mind that I'll show you where you can also use a different website that's using PHP to do this, but and then I will show you how you can download your word list when you're looking at this tool to attack or to assess a certain web application server, right? And then looking for files on the server and so on. So it's pretty cool. Okay, coming back here, we're gonna log into our Callie. So once you log on to the operating system, we're gonna do a sudo upgrade and update. That's gonna take a little bit of time. And then put in your password. So update is gonna give us the update to our software packages, right? Including our applications that comes with Kali. Upgrade is gonna upgrade the OS package. So when we do that, it might be a little bit of time. As you can see that it is pulling a lot of like different type of libraries and things. And when you're using open source tool, keep in mind that sometimes they use a specific type of library or the kernel. So if you don't have the current thing, you will not be able to install, right? I did a little bit of SQL injection with my other class, so I kept some of the part, but we won't do much of the SQL injection. We would focus on just fuzzing. But for brute force purposes, so I want to show you the capability of the tool. As we touch on like looking at the vulnerability. So if you fuzz for passwords and if it's able to detect weak passwords, you know that that's a vulnerability. So you would have to train the user and then put in password policy. Okay, so after we update and upgrade, we're gonna install Damn Vulnerable Web App, your DVWA. And with that, it's gonna install Apache, which is for your web server. And we are going to initialize MySQL, which is, it uses MariaDB in the back for Kali Linux or this version of Linux. So it's gonna activate that, and then we're gonna install phpMyAdmin. This is just for administration of the PHP, which is equipped for our web application because DVWA uses PHP. Now, PHP itself has vulnerability. So if you implement PHP, you need to really look at the package of PHP you're using as a service, and then also how you design your web application, each of the web application area, right? And then also looking at Apache 2 version is very important. I think we're using the 8.2. Okay, so I'll pause. Let me resume. Okay, so once we update, we're gonna install DVWA. I'm still behind. I think most of you are ahead. So we're gonna install Damn Vulnerable Web App. Once you do that, we can start Apache. We can type in the command or copy paste it. And you need to start that for the web, and you need to start database, so MySQL. And that comes with the DVWA package, okay? Otherwise, you have to install that separately. And then we're gonna do phpAdmin. If you took 27B, you've seen this already. It didn't paste right, so let me copy it again. So it's gonna prompt you this. We're gonna select Apache 2, right? And then we're just gonna go enter. So it's gonna place, so when you do this, it's gonna add user account to the database as well for the default based on the configuration. So when you get to this part, we're gonna press enter to proceed with yes. And we're just gonna give it a password for the admin. This is to manage the PHP side of the server. So I'm just gonna type in KALI for Cali, just for test purposes. And then press the arrow key down to go to OK, press enter. And then again, confirm your password. Arrow key down and then OK. So we just did step 15, 16, and 17, and 18. Then once that's done, we're gonna start the service for Damn Vulnerable Web App. No space after DVWA. Type in the password, KALI, same password that you used to log in. It's gonna open up the web page. Pay attention to the port number and we don't have a DNS on this, so this is why we have to keep it with the loopback address. All right, then you are going to go to setup, reset DB. We're gonna click create reset database. That's gonna create the database for us. Then you're gonna go to the security tab on DVWA near the bottom. Make sure we change it to low and click submit, because impossible sometimes it's harder to perform tasks on it or to perform tests. So if we lower it, that means that we have lower security. That means it's more vulnerable. So once you have that, just leave that open. We're gonna come back to the terminal. And we are going to install the sec list, which has all your word lists that you need for dictionary, brute force, and fuzzing attack. Now, there are a lot of different type of word lists online. This one has many within the directory, so you can check out their GitHub repository if you're not sure. So once you do this, it's gonna place the directory that contains all the word lists within your system or your virtual machine. Now, fuzzing, all we're doing is we are gonna give it some kind of data, sometimes inaccurate data, right? It's a malform or abnormal data, so that way we can see the response. That's what fuzzing really means. It's just we're gonna subject it to different type of data, not normal data, so that way we can find vulnerabilities, okay? We can find hidden files, or we can find forms, or we can find different things like login, so credential. So fuzzing is just, you know, sometimes it's best to use a word list for fuzzing. There are word lists that created for fuzzing within the directory we just downloaded. Okay. So the first part is we are going to use FFUF. And you notice that it's already there. If you're not sure, you can use the which command, right? WHICH, and then you can call on the application name. If it's there, it's gonna give you the path like this. Okay, so which can in Linux we use that to find if the application is installed. If not, it's gonna recommend the installation also. But we're gonna simply use FFUF-H. This is gonna give you the help option. You can scroll up to look. So you can output things to file based on fuzz. You can also use, so it's gonna give you status information, status code, like 200 is okay, 400 is error, right? You can also use -MC, which is bless you. So that is going to use matcher code. When you use a match HTTP status code, you're going to use the -MC. We can use thread count, which a lowercase t. There are a lot of different options, so you can take a look. And you can focus on specific things. This application is really aimed for JSON. So it's also good to use for scraping as well if you're interested in web scraping. And then if you want verbose, I think it also have a lowercase v. But recursion is really cool. Recursion, if you read their documentation, they show how you can use recursion with Fuzz or their tool to be able to see more directory for the web server and so on. So you're gonna look at target URL. So the target URL, we're gonna use a slash lowercase u, right? Most application would have a lowercase u for URL. If you want proxy, that's a -x. If you want wordless parameters, dash what? W. Is it up here or down there? They don't put it on order. I think it's near the end. So if you want directory search with wordless, yeah, W. But you need to put in where the file is unless it's in the immediate directory that you are accessing in the current path. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try fuzzing. So we are going to use a URL. You notice the -u here. We are going to use the word list and we're going to use the web content. This is a pre-made word list that we downloaded at the end of part A. So if you want to make your own word list, you can. Brandon, did you overcome that part?
Yeah, you're missing a /. At the beginning of the,
Oh, okay. I forgot to type it. For 30, right? This one? Okay. So we were at 25. Yeah, just a / on sep 30 for the CD. Okay, so this gives you all the information, but look. You're gonna say, so what? What happened, right? So when you're using this application, it's submitting GET requests. Basically, it's communicating with your web application. And what it's doing is it's gonna take the list, it's gonna parse through the list, which is this big text list right here, and you can cat it to see the content inside it. And it's gonna take each of the word on that list and it's gonna submit it into the web application. So remember that I'm just sending it to the actual homepage of it. I didn't specify any directory, it's just gonna fuzz it to see what kind of response. Remember that fuzzing, we don't have to give it legitimate data. We just give it data, right? And see what it's giving back. So when you look at it, what you want to do is you want to see, right? It's going to tell you sometimes status code information. Let me expand it so we can see everything. Because basically it's saying this for the status code 200, when we submit it, right? The words that we use from that list, most of them are 200. There were some that is 301. What's 301? Redirection, right? So whenever that you get a 301, that means that it's redirecting. It could be that the word that we're using is related to some kind of link, right? So that tells us that, oh, it might have possible hidden links. So here is where the scanner is going to give you information, but you have to take that information and interpret it in a meaningful way. When you fuzz, you don't have to have a successful 200 all the time. You want to see 400, 301, plus you possible errors, because the errors tells you that things didn't work and what could work, right? So we know that we have some success. That's fine. Those words work. And we have some redirection. So when we have redirection, we know that it might have embedded links that's built into the web application itself. It could be hidden links or it could be visible links. There, we need to find out more about the links. So here, I put down that when you're using the fuzz here, it's just a placeholder. So it's going to add in the word subsequently, like subdirectory, right? Like I might have password directory. I might have, you know, username directory. So it's going to plug in the word from the list into here, right? Based on this big list, this big text file, and it's going to give us some kind of URL. If it's successful, it's going to be, we know that those are the directory. If it's not, then it doesn't work, right? Everybody get that? Okay. Screenshot, view the results, and identify the words that output the code 301. So the words are here: config, database, docs, external, robots. So 301, that's database, right? Config, got 301. But when we're using favicon, ICO, and robot, that one is successful because I think there's a reCAPTCHA component in our web application. So that's how it's checking for the robot.txt here. So that works. This is one of the more user-friendly ones. Later on, you're going to see the less user-friendly ones.
Are we seeing the robot?
Hmm?
In the output, are you seeing robot? Oh,
Look at the left for the word. So that means that it plugs in where? It plugs in here, right? And when you look at a URL, that's a subdirectory. Or it could, potentially, it could be a file, like a .php, a .text, a .html. You know? So fuzzing, we just give it all kinds of data and see what it gets. Yeah. And even if it's error, it's fine. Okay, on the next one, 26, similar, right? We're going to do the same thing as the last one, but we are going to look for admin before admin. So we'll see if we can find something on admin because we're interested. And it's not going to be a lot because it's actually a very small area that we're looking at. So we're going to plug in, and if it doesn't exist, it's not going to crank out anything for you there. So I wanted to show you that if you're trying to have a directory with the subdirectory admin here, for that web application, if it doesn't have anything, it might not give you anything. So it's still going to run the task, but you know, and then if you want, you can put in the extra filter, right? Like the dash. So if I want to run this again, and if I want to filter for additional things, I just do a -MC like this, and then the status code, like I want 200 or 301 or 400 there. You can, and if it doesn't work, right, it's not going to give you anything else. It's going to say, oh, it went through 20,000 things from the work list. But it didn't really have any kind of result there. You can see that it did process that task, right? So take a screenshot. Then on the next one, we are gonna look at a different word list, but we're gonna look for files. This is where you can traverse for files. Why is that important? Well, you know, coming from an attacker standpoint, these the PHP.html, if we can have access to it, we can modify things, but text file, some programmer, they use text file as input, right? Read, you guys know this. If you learn programming, read from file, and text file is the easiest one to parse for reading. So, you know, you can have like a list of price from text, but a lot of the time now we use CSV for that and using, you know, additional web-based development language to read it. But we can look for specific file this way. So here it's telling you if it's 200, it finds it. If it's 301, it's redirecting it, right? So we're plugging in similar words that what you've seen before, like config, database, all of those things. The 300s, you can go to mozilla.org. They have a whole documentation on status code, right? We have security.php, that's successful. That's that tab that you clicked earlier to change it to low, medium, or high, right? Or impossible. So those exist. The redirection, they might not exist. They might or might not exist. We're not sure, right? It redirects, but you know, we have to test the link with that. So, and then we also have root-based file. Yeah.
One more correction for step 30. It's not usernames.txt, it's names.txt.
Is it under usernames?
No, it's
Names under username, right?
in the file of names folder. So
Oh, it's names.txt. You're right. I forgot about that. Names.txt. Yeah, I was digging through the directory last night. You know that they previously changed, they changed these. So yeah, it used to be seclist with the capital S and a capital L, and then they modify this. And it's recent too, because I know I went over this exercise with my other class a few months ago, and it was like capital S, capital L, and then now it's lowercase. Yeah, they modified it.
oh, it's updated.
Yeah, it's open source. You want them to update things, so. All right. So you guys saw how to find files. Now we're gonna fuzz. So we can filter it out. So here I want to show you how you can do the MC at the end, but it is not effective compared to if you do the MC before the -E, right? I tested it multiple times where the parameters is. So if you're doing the match option code before the actual file extension, it is a lot more effective. Because I was like, why is it cranking out that it's not able to find anything? That's impossible because I just found something from the previous one. Yeah, so the placement for your option sometimes matters. That's what I meant, is that if you put the MC at the end, it might not find, it would just find the file extension, but it might not be able to filter because it's looking at the status code first. So we would put the status code first before the file extension. The response first. So you find it's a little bit less than the last one because we're only gonna look at the 200, which is successful get, right? It's able to see. So we have index.php and the others. Whereas in the last one, we also have 301. So should be like about 60%. So count how many files. I'm sure there's a way to do that through the app itself too, but So next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to brute force. And whenever that you hear brute force, it's gonna be 50% chance. I know that you guys are like, what do you mean? Cracking password should be easy, right? But brute force, it's really depending on the mechanism behind that, right? Like how, if they have password policy implemented, lockout policy implemented, and other things. So brute force take time and resources. We don't always revert to brute force to do things, but brute force will tell us more about password usage as a pen tester or an analyst. So with this, I want to show you how you can do it, right? So here, what we can see is it's plugging in this list. Now, how much garbage is on your list is really gonna tell you the effectiveness of your list. So if your list is good, then the brute force process is gonna be more easier. But if your list is not good, then not so effective, right? You see a bunch of 301, that means that these users didn't work for me. Okay, so find another username list. But I want to show you how that works. If it's 200, then you know that the username works, right? Okay, because it load the page. Now, if it's redirecting, because if you try to brute force, click on the brute force and type in the wrong name, right? It's just going to give you a blank page. That's a redirection. That's a 301. Okay, so we see how that's done now. I hope you remember. Like, forget it, summer is starting. Okay, so it did any results show 200? No, right? So we know that the word list we use is not good. So we want to use a more, maybe a bigger word list or a word list that is more common or more effective. And you can find it in the sec lists that we downloaded, or you can also download another one. And then count up the number of words that we use here. So I process what? It says 17, right? And then we can do this in a different way. So you saw this can be done this way, right? When you load the word list, and then you would have it plugged in username and password. But ultimately, you always want to have content type, application, and URL encoded, because that's going to convert the string that is posted to the page, right? And it needs to be converted through the encoding process. So I corrected this one thanks to Brandon, and I had, I was troubleshooting it when I was writing this, and I forgot to include the slash, and instead of username is names.txt. So make sure that we make note of that. So we need to access the lists that have names. That's the easiest way. We already downloaded it from the earlier step when you downloaded the repository from part A, right? It has all the word lists. Now, Kali does come equipped with its own smaller word list, right? But you can pull the other word list. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a similar thing to what you've done in the last one, but you are going to join, right? You are going to use a variable called W1, and it's going to take the word from the names for the username and place it into the placeholder W1, and it's going to plug that into the username part, right? This is how we automate this. And then it's going to take the password from the million password list tops 100 and put it into W2 and then plug it into the password field. Just like the other one, we're going to have the content encoded part and then our target URL, right? But we want to focus on the code 200. We want to see which account is successful. Okay, so you can filter with a dash FC or an MC. MC stands for match code and FC stands for focus code. Okay, we got that? Any questions? Just make sure we change usernames to names.txt and then put a / right before it. And I put it verbose so you can see, right? It's coming by really fast. You can see how the username and password plugged in, right? Very, very quick. And this might take a few minutes. Take a screenshot for your lab submission. How many requests? There should be an S. Were generated for the attack. At the end, it's going to tell you how many attempts that it did. Whether it's successful or not is how effective these lists are, right? So now you can see how to automate brute force using a list. It's not a dictionary attack. No, don't get it wrong, right? It's try and true. So we're plugging in username and password, trying different combination. Now, another way to do brute force is to enumerate through it, right? Try numbers and letters and characters and so on. So we already have pre-made passwords and names. Why not try it? Okay. Now for the dictionary, then you can use, there are dictionary word lists that's within. You can also use dictionary base, and dictionary would have common words that you would see, that you would find in a dictionary. So you would see a lot of different variation that looks like F, right? Ffuf, SFuzz, but there are, I think we learned Wfuzz before in this class. I think I showed you guys some of that before. So these two are the common ones, and then you're gonna see the SFuzz, which is simple fuzz. And it's more application oriented. You know, you can use it, but it does the enumeration. So you see it as enumeration. It's not as effective as the other one, but you know, you can use it. All of these you can use as an API. So, and they on the documentation they show you how you can grab it as an API. What file's not there? Word list with an S. Did you install it earlier? Did you install this? Yeah, so put a
So what I think I'll do is, things like when to this section. Just heads up, in case you're interested, you could just laugh. I'll show you everything that's connected. Actually, all your, it's got this history of SSHs. So this is the generated by the web. Web image, and this is my. Okay, I don't think I mean just say it.
space and S. Make sure we put space.
Oh,
Okay, okay, that's fine. I got you.
No, not even like that. They noticed this, like, I was talking
Okay, so here is, it should be a few minutes. It's not that long, 10 minutes or less, right? You are gonna see, so it, for mine, it went through what? 1 million and something, so it tracks as a progress right here. So it executed all one job, but there are 5,555 requests per second, and the total request that it submitted is in progress right there. Right, and you can see these are the username and then a lot of the Minecraft password. I think our password list is shorter than the username, so you just get like the same password being used compared to different username like Zoel, Zena, Zorins, Zoltan. But that might not be the best username list to use, right? I just use a names list, but you can find other lists to use. And when you see 301, that's a redirection, so that didn't work, right? And then you can filter out. So it didn't do well with the FC, so we probably should move this option to here. You can try different variation with the options and see with the parameter. All right, so next part, we're gonna do simple fuzz or SFuzz. We're gonna do a CD to get back to the main home directory. Then you are going to install SFuzz. It's a very small program, so put in your password. Once that's installed, we are going to look at the help options. It shows there are some similar options, but very basic. Then what you're gonna do is you are going to use the config file to execute things, okay? So look at the option that performs literal in fuzzing. So look in here, it talks about the literal. There's the literal with the dash lowercase l. And then to perform sequencing is right below that S. Okay. Then on the next one, we're going to create a config file. So we're gonna do nano first fuzz config. So for my Python for cybersecurity class, we do quite a bit of this. It's an empty file, right? We are gonna simply, you can copy and paste this, but basically these literals are kind of like your word list that you're gonna plug in, you understand? So we are gonna define literals. And these are the comments. And in order to process the sequence, so it's gonna sequencing upon new line and it's gonna go A, B, B, C, C, and so on, right? So it's gonna go through and enumerate through for the sequence and also the numbers. So you can specify however that you want as far as sequence and your literals. And then the maximum length, you're gonna put it as 1024. So this is the size that you want it to go, right? But most importantly, I read the documentation. They want me to point this out to you. Fuzz and this dash dash cannot be omitted. It must be there for this to work, right? So this is gonna execute. It's basically a function call, right? And then a new line. If you don't have a new line, it's gonna jumble it all up and it doesn't work because it looks for that, right? So paste that in here. Control X to save. Yes. Press Y and then press enter. Then what you're gonna do is you are going to use that file to show the output. So you're gonna fuzz using that file, basically. See? All the file stuff, all the things that you put in the files, it's sequenced based on that. All the symbols, all the character, all the letters. So whatever that you want to put into the literal and the sequence, that's what you can use. You can put it into a config file and have the application use that file and plug those into the parameter and be able to fuzz. Okay. So I want to show you, this is more of a different approach compared to something that's already pre-built like the last one, where this one you do have a lot more say in what goes into the parameter for fuzzing, right? Well, the other one, you just simply use a word list, but this you can modify the config file, the literal. All right. So now we see that screenshot, what type of data is being used for fuzz, whatever that you put into the literal and the sequence, but ultimately the data from the config, right? The config file. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna come back to the file and then you're gonna put the curly brace, oops, around, so you move your arrow down and put the curly brace around the word fuzz. Like this. And we're gonna put a message, no fuzz. And we're gonna say Control X, Y, enter. And we're gonna rerun it and see what it does. So notice right here, when it's attempting to fuzz A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because we put the curly brace around there, it could not pass that as a parameter. Same thing with the next one, same thing with the next one. So the sequencing part for those values that was defined in the file, when we look back here, right? This part right here, well, I'm sorry, for the literal right here, it could not plug that in. So it didn't pass the literal when it was doing the fuzzing, but it's able to do the sequencing. And you can see that on the output, the sequencing right here, but the literal did not pass. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna modify some more. So take a screenshot for step 41 compared to 37, right? It did not plug in the literal for that part. Then we are going to modify the config file again. We're gonna take out the actual fuzz and we're gonna add this in. But always make sure it's a new line. Yes, Brandon.
Those first two add config should be placed before.
I'm sorry. Oh, end config?
Yeah, because if you don't, it won't even consider those extra commands and just kind of ignore them.
Oh, good point. But before the new line, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll save this. Okay, so for the next one, go ahead.
It's fuzz below it. But that's supposed to be output, correct?
Yeah. Oh. But before the double dotted line. I thought I ran it, but after the end config, it runs.
Oh, no, it does print out the end. The comments, but that's it. No, it also prints out that. Yeah, what's it supposed to do? It's supposed to with the added extra layer here, just so that, so here's a list of all the things.
I thought I checked it yesterday and it ran fine.
It actually checks for that.
Okay. So what we can do is we can have it wait, right, 200 milliseconds. So there's a pause in between. And we can put in the URL or the host name. So I put the IP address here, but ideally this is a placeholder, the host name for your domain name, right? Like, so if if it's like, you know, nis.org, that's nis.org goes here. Okay, your DNS. But because we don't have a DNS, we're just gonna use this, so it's subpar in my part for this area. Okay. So Brandon recommended that you should add this section before nconfig and then get fuzz before the 2 dash, before the new line. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this. Come back here, go to nano for my file, go down, and I'm just gonna remove these 2 lines and then paste because I have the nconfig with the within my block of code that I snip. Okay. And Control X. Yes, enter. Then run. So you do see a pause in between, right? And then it's when it does the get, it's just gonna plug in the sequence that you had put it. Take a screenshot compared to the last output. Well, you do see that it's actually plugging in the host name information. You can try it with Kali and see what it does. I try it with Kali, it's the same because that's the actual host name of the system, the local system. So let's do that real quick. It's a quick run for that. Let's see. Oh, I'm on a different one. So I'm gonna modify the host name and see if it should still be fine. Control X, yes, enter. And then we're gonna run the command. Sorry, I have a different terminal window. Happened. Did not see. Let's run the last one. This one first. So that one works. We're gonna see if the dash T and the ones here works. Yeah, my file name is wrong on that one. CONFG. Make sure we fix the file name here. Still an error.
Must specify host port to that mode, so. But one of the.
Yeah, you can put in the Cali, but the port 80 is not, because it's not using port 80. It should be using port 80 to reach the server itself, but maybe if we remove the port number here.
Yeah, no, that bit.
Huh? Yeah, to remove the port number. Yeah, because it didn't like having two ports, because it's actually, the other port is for DVWA itself, and then that port 80 is for the web server. So if you're trying to attack or to fuzz the web server, then say the web server, right? So if you're at step 46, remove the port 42001. Yeah, so you have to think about that, right? Like, oh, I'm fuzzing through port 80, but if I have an additional port and it's throwing an error like that, or it's not able to figure out because the application doesn't know which port you're trying to use, then take out one of the ports. Because it ran fine earlier without the port information. Yeah, so it should be okay with the regular. So it's completely fuzzy now. So it's loading the index HTML here, and it tells me it grabbed the banner for the server, so it tells me it's Apache, and it's still because we're fuzzing, we should expect some kind of redirection, but here's the size for our fuzzing. So we did get some information like the server, the Linux Debian, so we see that. And then, you know, here's some server information through port 80. And that's how you fuzz. Take a screenshot. So I want to introduce you to, this is a legitimate website that you can use to test, but do not floor them, right? It's not a real website, but they made it for you to use it to test PHP vulnerabilities. So plug this into your URL, do the last few steps just like this, but the target, instead of the 127, use this .com, right? It does go out through RCCD network and reach the target. You know, so, and then see if you're successful or not, because you always, I'm thinking that my students sometimes think that, oh, because it's a local machine, you're always going to get results. So if you really want to test it with the real, you know, you can check it with test websites, or, you know, nmap.org, stuff like that. Scanme.nmap.org. So if you get through successfully or not, take a screenshot and then show if the output is different or the same. Bless you. And then answer the questions. Upon completing this lab, what did you learn about fuzzing? How can we use fuzzing in cybersecurity risk management functions? Remember the discovery, detection, identification, all of those things. And we talked about how fuzzing can be used for vulnerability detection. What should we do to improve system security after finding the results from fuzzing? Right? We want to mitigate risk by reducing vulnerability and threats. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.